right, welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're tackling something that's probably on everyone's mind as we kick off a new year. You know, how to avoid some of those common career missteps that could be holding us back. You specifically requested we take a look at a Forbes article titled 7 Common Career Mistakes in the New Year That Employees Make. It's by Brian Robinson. Smart move. We're going to unpack it together and pull out some of those golden nuggets so you can set yourself up for success this year. Maybe even a promotion. Who knows? Ready to dive in?
Absolutely. I mean, the job market can feel like a maze sometimes, right? Especially with so much changing so quickly. Let's help our listeners navigate it and avoid those dead ends.
Totally. And speaking of dead ends, let me throw a stat, from the article. This one really got me thinking. Only 6.5% of employees get promoted each year. That's a tiny slice of the workforce. What do you think contributes to that lower number?
That's a fascinating question. It's easy to assume that everyone's working hard and aiming for advancement, but clearly something's not clicking for the vast majority. I think part of it comes down to visibility. You know, are you showcasing your value in a way that truly resonates with those decision makers? And then there's the strategic element. Are you making choices that actually move the needle towards promotion? Or are you just kind of stuck in a rut, just doing your job?
That's a great point about visibility and strategy. It's not enough to just put in the hours. Got to be deliberate about it. And that brings us perfectly to the first mistake highlighted in the article, not setting realistic goals. Oh, I'm definitely guilty of this one. It's a new year, new me. Let's conquer the world, right?
Right.
But Tim Brown, he's the founder of Hook Agency, and he's quoted in the piece. Well, he cautions against that go big or go home mentality. He says it often backfires. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Brown is spot on. I mean, it's like setting out to climb Mount Everest without proper training or gear, right?
Yeah.
The sheer scale of the goal can be paralyzing. So you end up feeling overwhelmed and discouraged before you even begin. Instead, he advocates for breaking down those ambitious goals into smaller, more achievable milestones. And what's so fascinating is this approach not only makes success more likely, but it also changes your mindset. Each small win fuels your motivation and kind of propels you forward.
Okay, so it's about momentum. Building that sense of accomplishment with each step, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it ties in nicely to the second mistake, neglecting your resume and online profiles. It's easy to let these things slide when we're busy. But Brown stresses the importance of updating them now before opportunity knocks. But it's got to be more than just dusting off the old resume, right?
Yeah.
What would you say are the key things someone should focus on?
You hit the nail on the head. It's not just about having an updated document. It's about having a strategically crafted narrative. Think of your resume and LinkedIn profile as your personal marketing campaign. You need to capture attention quickly and highlight your unique value proposition. And this means tailoring your content to your target audience, the hiring managers and recruiters in your field. So what are they looking for? What keywords are relevant to the roles you're interested in? Then you want to weave those keywords naturally into your experience descriptions, showcasing your accomplishments and quantifying your impact whenever possible.
So it's about being specific and results-oriented, not just listing generic responsibilities.
I like that. You're essentially making it easy for the right people to find you and understand your value at a glance. Makes sense. Now, this next mistake resonates with me on a personal level, because such an introvert. Skipping networking opportunities. Brown argues that networking, especially early in the year, is crucial for opening doors. I can already hear some of our listeners groaning, networking.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a painful experience, right?
Yeah.
What are some ways to approach it authentically and make it less, awkward?
You're so right. Networking often gets a bad rap. People envision those stuffy events with forced small talk and awkward handshakes. But at its core, networking is simply about building genuine connections. Think of it as expanding your circle of influence and learning from others. And it doesn't have to be all about formal events. It could be as simple as reconnecting with former colleagues, joining online industry groups, or attending webinars that pique your interest. The key is to be curious, ask thoughtful questions, and try to find common ground. Okay, I'm feeling less intimidated already. It's about finding those shared interests and building relationships organically. Makes sense. But let's be real, sometimes even the most seasoned networker can hit a wall with their own boss. That's actually mistake number 4. Poor communication with your manager. This one can feel tricky. How do you strike that balance between keeping your boss informed and not coming across as, annoying?
Excellent question. And Brown actually addresses this directly. He suggests scheduling a meeting with your boss early in the year, specifically to discuss your goals and seek their guidance. This demonstrates proactivity and shows that you're invested in your growth within the company. But even beyond that initial meeting, it's about building a communication style that works for both of you. Some bosses are more hands-on, and prefer frequent updates, while others prefer a more streamlined approach. It's about understanding their preferences and tailoring your communication accordingly. And it's not just about frequency, it's about the quality of your communication. Are you framing your updates in a way that highlights your contributions and aligns with the company's priorities? Are you proactively flagging potential challenges and proposing solutions? These are the things that make you an invaluable asset, someone your boss can rely on.
It's about becoming a problem solver, not just a problem presenter. I love that shift in perspective, and I think it ties into the next mistake on our list, which is honestly a tough one for a lot of people, including me. Not actively seeking feedback, it can be so nerve-wracking, especially if you're already feeling kind of insecure about your performance. But Brown argues that feedback is essential for growth. Have you found that to be true in your own career?
Absolutely. Feedback, when given constructively, is like a roadmap for improvement. It highlights blind spots you might not even be aware of, and offers guidance on how to strengthen your skills. I remember early in my career, I received some tough feedback from a mentor about my presentation style. My initial reaction was defensiveness. But once I took a step back and really listened, I realized it was an incredibly valuable lesson that forced me to step outside my comfort zone and experiment with different approaches. And ultimately, it made me a much more effective communicator.
Wow, that's such a great example of how feedback, even when it's hard to hear, can be a gift. But I think a lot of people struggle with not just seeking feedback, but also receiving it gracefully. Any tips on how to navigate that?
The key is to approach feedback with a growth mindset. View it as an opportunity for learning and development, rather than a personal attack. And remember, feedback is subjective. It's one person's perspective, based on their own experiences and biases. So listen actively, ask clarifying questions, and try to understand their point of view. But ultimately, you get to decide which feedback resonates with you and what actions you want to take.
It's about taking ownership of your development. That makes a lot of sense. Now, this next mistake feels particularly relevant in today's rapidly evolving job market, failing to learn new skills. Brown cautions that neglecting professional development can seriously hinder your career prospects. But with so many options out there, how do you even know where to start? It can feel overwhelming.
It definitely can. But that's where a little strategic thinking comes in. First, consider your current role and your long-term career goals. What skills are essential for success in your field? What emerging trends are shaping your industry? Once you have a sense of the skills you need, explore different learning pathways. There are tons of online courses and resources available, many of them free or low cost. You can also leverage your network, connect with people in your field, and ask about their learning experiences. And don't underestimate the value of on-the-job training. Volunteer for new projects, shadow colleagues in different departments, or seek out mentorship opportunities that can expose you to new skills and perspectives.
I love that you brought up mentorship again. It's such a powerful tool for growth, and I think it's especially important when it comes to learning new skills, because you have someone to guide you and provide support along the way. Okay, we're getting close to the end of our list. But this last mistake is a big one, especially in our always-on culture. Not setting boundaries, burnout is real, and it can derail even the most promising career. What are some practical strategies for establishing those boundaries and protecting your well-being?
Setting boundaries is crucial, but it can be tricky, especially if you're in a demanding work environment. It starts with recognizing your own limits and understanding what recharges you, what activities help you de-stress and disconnect. Schedule those into your week like you would any other important appointment, and be mindful of your technology use. Set aside specific times to check email and respond to messages, and resist the urge to be constantly connected. It's also important to communicate your boundaries clearly to your colleagues and your boss. Let them know your working hours and your preferred communication channels. And don't be afraid to say no to requests that fall outside those boundaries.
That's such a great point about communication. It's about setting expectations and advocating for your own needs. Now, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. That shocking statistic about how few people actually get promoted each year, it paints a pretty competitive picture, right? So beyond avoiding these mistakes, what else can someone do to really stand out and improve their chances of advancement?
It's a great question. It's about taking all the things we've discussed, the goal setting, the communication, the feedback, the skill building, and weaving them together into a cohesive strategy. And then it's about adding that extra layer of initiative and leadership. Look for opportunities to go above and beyond your job description. Volunteer for projects that stretch your skills. Come up with innovative solutions to challenges, and be a proactive team player.
It's about becoming someone people want to work with, and someone who adds value beyond their immediate role. That makes sense. But I'm curious, Given all the pressures of today's work environment, how do you avoid getting caught up in that hustle culture mentality and burning yourself out in the process?
It's a constant balancing act, and it requires a conscious effort to prioritize your well-being. For me, it's about setting realistic expectations and learning to say no when necessary. It's also about scheduling regular me time into my week, whether it's going for a hike, reading a book, or simply disconnecting from technology for a few hours. It's about recognizing that I'm most productive and engaged when I'm feeling refreshed and energized, both mentally and physically.
That's such a great reminder. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter and taking care of yourself in the process. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground, but I want to make sure we're giving our listeners some concrete takeaways. So far, we focused on what not to do, but what are some positive actions someone can take right now to set themselves up for success in the new year?
I love that question. Let's shift gears and talk about proactive steps you can take to boost your career trajectory. First, I'd recommend revisiting your resume and LinkedIn profile with a critical eye. Are they truly showcasing your skills and accomplishments in a way that resonates with your target audience? Update them with those key insights we discussed earlier. Next, schedule that meeting with your boss to discuss your goals for the year. Come prepared with specific ideas and initiatives you'd like to tackle.
Those are great starting points. And I'd add, make a commitment to continuous learning. Identify one new skill you want to develop this year and explore different learning pathways to achieve that goal, whether it's an online course, a mentorship program, or simply shadowing a colleague in a different department. Make it a priority.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of networking. Reach out to someone in your field for an informational interview. Attend an industry event, or join an online professional group. You never know what opportunities might arise from those connections.
Great advice. It's all about putting yourself out there and expanding your horizons. Now, I know we've been talking a lot about external factors, the job market, the competition, the skills gap, but what about the internal game? What role does mindset play in career success?
Mindset is everything. It's the foundation upon which your actions and ultimately your success are built. If you approach your career with a sense of fear or scarcity or self-doubt, it's going to be reflected in your choices and your overall performance.
Yeah, it's like that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So how do we cultivate that positive growth-oriented mindset, especially in a field that can feel so competitive?
Well, it starts with recognizing your own inner critic, that voice that whispers doubts and fears in your ear. We all have it, but instead of letting it control you, you got to challenge those negative thoughts. Ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Is it based on facts or simply my own insecurities? And then try to reframe those thoughts into something more empowering.
So, for example, instead of thinking, I'm not qualified for that promotion, maybe you think, what skills do I need to develop to become a stronger candidate?
Exactly. It's about shifting your perspective from one of limitation to one of possibility. And it's also about celebrating your wins, no matter how small. Each accomplishment, each step forward, builds your confidence and reinforces that positive mindset.
It's like building that internal, yes, I can muscle. I love that. And I think it's especially important to remember that career growth isn't always linear. There will be setbacks, there will be detours, but those experiences, even the tough ones, are valuable learning opportunities.
Absolutely. Every challenge you overcome, every obstacle you navigate, it just adds to your resilience and your expertise. And it's those experiences that shape you into a well-rounded professional, someone who can adapt to change and thrive in any environment.
You know, as we've been talking about all these mistakes to avoid and strategies to embrace, I keep thinking back to that statistic about how few people actually get promoted. It can feel daunting, almost discouraging. What would you say to someone who's feeling overwhelmed by the competition and unsure of how to break through?
I'd say focus on what you can control. You can't control the actions of others, but you can control your own efforts, your attitude, your commitment to growth. And remember, comparison is the thief of joy. Instead of comparing yourself to others, focus on your own unique journey and celebrate your own progress.
That's such a great reminder. It's about running your own race and focusing on your own personal best. And speaking of personal best, what's one piece of advice you wish you had received at the beginning of your career? Something that would have made a significant difference in your journey?
That's a great question. I think the one piece of advice I'd give my younger self is to be more intentional about building relationships. Early in my career, I was so focused on proving myself and climbing the ladder that I kind of neglected the importance of fostering genuine connections with colleagues, mentors, and industry peers. Those relationships are invaluable, not just for career advancement, but also for personal growth and support.
That's so true. It's about building that community of people who understand your journey and can offer guidance and encouragement along the way. And sometimes those connections can lead to unexpected opportunities that you never even knew existed.
Absolutely. So to our listener, I encourage you to be proactive in building your network. Reach out to people you admire. Attend industry events. Get involved in professional organizations. You never know where those connections might lead.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, from setting realistic goals to cultivating a positive mindset. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought you want to leave our listener with?
I'd say remember that your career is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, twists and turns, but it's the journey itself that shapes you and defines your success. So embrace the challenges, celebrate the wins, and never stop learning and growing.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay to experiment, to try new things, and to adjust your course along the way. The most important thing is to stay curious, stay engaged, and stay true to your own unique path.
Beautifully said.
All right, everyone, that wraps up our deep dive into avoiding career mistakes in the new year. We hope you found it insightful and are feeling energized to tackle your career goals with confidence.
We're cheering you on.
And remember, if you ever need a little inspiration, you can always revisit this episode or any of our other deep dives for a dose of career wisdom. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.